Claire Monroe pushed open the front door, still smelling of diner coffee and sea wind, and froze. 3 men in tailored suits sat in her living room like judges at a private trial. The cheap lamp flickered over their polished shoes. Her mother, Linda, stood near the window, trembling, a glass of whiskey in her shaking hand. "Mom?" Claire's voice was wary. "What's going on?" Linda's eyes filled instantly with tears. "Baby, I'm sorry. I didn't know who they were." The man in the center rose from the couch. Late 30s, dark suit, darker eyes. He carried calm like a weapon. "Your mother owes me a debt," he said softly. "She lost a great deal of money at my club." Claire's stomach twisted. "Then call the police." He almost smiled. "We are not the kind of people who call the police." Her mother broke down then, voice cracking through the room. I told them I had nothing left." "And he said. The man's gaze never left Claire. "Your mother paid me," he said. "With you." Silence filled the room, thick as smoke. Claire's mother sobbed, "They'll hurt Austin if I don't." Vince Moretti didn't raise his voice. "Your mother's debt is mine to settle. She offered you as payment." Claire's breath caught. "You can't just." "I can," he said simply. "But I prefer your consent." Her gaze darted to her mother, broken, pleading, then to the 2 men by the door, still as statues. The house no longer felt like home, it felt like a cage closing in. "If I go with you," she whispered, "you leave them alone?" "Completely." For a long second, only the sound of the sea filled the silence. Then she nodded once. "Fine. I'll go." Vince's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes, respect, or maybe pity. He turned toward the door. "Pack a bag." When Claire stepped into the cold night, the wind stung her face. The black car waited at the curb, engine humming. Her mother's voice cracked behind her, "Claire." But the door closed, and the sound vanished. She didn't look back. Because she knew, she'd just been sold. The courthouse was silent. No flowers, no guests, only the echo of pens signing paper that would chain her life to his. When the clerk slid the marriage certificate across the desk, Claire stared at her new name, Claire Moretti. Vince closed his pen, thanked the judge, and led her out without a word. Outside, a black car waited, engine already running. The ride was quiet. Through tinted glass, the city faded into cliffs and sea mist. She half expected him to speak, to explain why this was necessary, but he only watched the road ahead, calm, unreadable, as if this were just another transaction. His house appeared like a fortress above the water, steel, glass, and silence. Guards patrolled the driveway. Cameras blinked red in the corners. Inside, Vince set her small bag on the polished floor. "The East Wing is yours," he said. "Everything you need is there. No one will disturb you." "And what exactly am I to you?" she asked. His gaze met hers, steady. "Someone under my protection." He didn't touch her, didn't threaten her. He simply turned and walked away. That quietness unnerved her more than any violence could have. That night, she couldn't sleep. The ocean wind howled against the glass, the house breathing like a living thing. When she finally wandered into the kitchen, she found a covered plate on the counter, pasta with lemon and garlic, her favorite. A note beneath it read, "Eat. You'll need strength." No signature. Days blurred. Vince left early, returned late, sometimes with bruised knuckles or blood on his cuff. The staff moved like ghosts. At breakfast, he read Italian newspapers while she sipped coffee in silence. Occasionally, his eyes flicked toward her reflection in the window, fleeting, cautious, almost human. One evening, she discovered the library, dark shelves, leather books, the scent of rain through open glass. On her table lay a small book of poetry she hadn't placed there. Inside, a single line in neat handwriting. "Your Italian is terrible. Keep trying." Then came the storm. Lightning tore the sky open, the lights flickered out. Claire lit a candle just as footsteps approached. Vince appeared, sleeves rolled, voice low. "The generator will start soon." "Why did you marry me?" she asked. "You could have just paid the debt." His expression barely shifted. "Because once you wear my name, no one can touch you." "And you?" she whispered. He paused in the doorway. "I don't want to hurt you, Claire. I just need you safe." The lights came back, and he was gone, leaving her with the strange, unbearable truth that safety and captivity felt exactly the same. Weeks passed, and the house by the ocean turned from shelter to cage. Claire woke to the rhythm of guards changing shifts, to the hush of waves against the cliffs. She wasn't allowed past the gates, "For your safety," Vince had said, yet the cameras and silence felt like a leash. He was gone most days. When he returned, he brought rain on his coat, the scent of smoke, and the weight of something unspoken. At breakfast, he read Italian papers while she pushed food around her plate. Their words never filled a room, only glances did, brief, unreadable, magnetic. The staff whispered. "She's the hostage wife," she once heard. "A debt wearing a wedding ring." She stopped correcting them. Then, one morning, the glass shattered. The sound was sharp enough to steal her breath. A bullet tore through her bedroom window, embedding in the wall inches from her head. She dropped to the floor, heart pounding. Footsteps thundered through the hallway. 2 guards burst in. "Signora Moretti, stay down." Then Vince appeared, barefoot, half-dressed, gun in hand. His eyes were darker than the sea behind him. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head. "What's happening?" He didn't answer. He moved to the window, scanning the line of sight, every gesture controlled and deadly. "Get her downstairs," he ordered. The guards escorted her to the living room, the house now buzzing with radios and shouts in Italian. When he finally joined her, his shirt was stained with glass dust, his expression unreadable. "Who shot at us?" she demanded. "At me," he corrected softly. "You were collateral." Her throat tightened. "Then tell me who wants you dead." His jaw flexed. "You don't need to know. I live here. Someone just tried to kill me, I think I deserve to know." His gaze met hers, cold fire, but beneath it, something almost like fear. "If I tell you, you'll never sleep again." That night, the guards doubled. Lights stayed on. Vince paced the terrace for hours, phone pressed to his ear. Through the window, she caught one word carried by the wind, "Crow." A name she didn't know, but it made his tone turn to steel. When he finally came inside, he stopped at her door. "I won't let anyone touch you," he said quietly. Claire wanted to believe him, but the word safe no longer meant anything. After he left, she sat by the cracked glass and stared out at the restless sea. In its reflection, she saw the bullet hole, a perfect black circle. It looked like an eye watching her sleep. For 2 days after the shooting, the house lived in silence. Guards changed posts without speaking, the staff moved like ghosts, and Vince barely appeared except for short, whispered phone calls behind closed doors. Claire tried to stay calm, but fear had settled deep inside her, heavy as lead. On the third night, she'd had enough. She found him in his study, the one room she'd never entered before, walls of dark oak, shelves of files, a map of the city pinned with red lines and names. He stood near the window, sleeves rolled, whiskey in hand, the low light outlining the edge of his jaw. "Tell me who they are," she said, stepping inside. He didn't turn. "You shouldn't be here." "I almost died 2 nights ago, Vince. I think that qualifies me to know why." He sighed, still facing the glass. "Knowledge doesn't keep you alive, Claire. Distance does." She came closer, her voice sharper now. "Don't talk to me like one of your soldiers. You dragged me into this world, now explain it." That made him turn. His eyes were cold, but beneath the surface something fractured. "You want the truth?" he asked quietly. "Yes. Your mother's debt was never about money." The words hit like a physical blow. "What do you mean?" He set the glass down carefully. "The gambling, the loans, all of it was orchestrated. Jared Crow needed a reason to get close to me. You were that reason." Claire stared, disbelief mixing with nausea. "So my mother was bait?" He nodded once. "They fed her luck, then debt, then fear. Crow wanted leverage, someone I couldn't ignore." "And you married me to own me before they could," she whispered. "I married you," he said, stepping closer, "to make you untouchable. In my world, a man's wife is sacred. Even my enemies respect that line." She laughed bitterly. "You really think this ring is protection?" "It's a cage." "I know." His voice softened. "But cages are safer than graves." She turned away, blinking back tears. "You could have told me. You let me hate you instead." "I'd rather you hate me than fear them." For a long moment, only the rain filled the silence. She could feel him watching her, not as possession, but as something far more complicated. Finally she asked, "Why me, Vince? Out of everyone, why me?" He hesitated. Then his voice dropped to a whisper. "Because I knew you before that night." She looked at him, confused. "What are you talking about?" "I saw you at the diner on Harbor Road. Weeks before the debt. You worked double shifts, always tired, always kind to people who didn't deserve it. I used to stop by for coffee after meetings." A faint smile touched his lips. "You never looked at me twice." She felt the world tilt. "You knew who I was. I knew what kind of person you were." His gaze softened. "And when Crow set the trap, I couldn't let them use you. So I made a choice." "You bought me," she said flatly. "I saved you," he corrected. Something inside her cracked, not from anger, but from the strange tenderness in his voice. He wasn't lying, she could hear it. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked. He exhaled slowly. "Every night. And then I remember the alternative, your body in some alley because my enemies wanted leverage. Regret becomes irrelevant." Claire looked down at the ring on her finger. It no longer felt like iron, it felt like a lock without a key. Vince took a slow step forward. "I know what I've taken from you. But if I hadn't, you'd be dead." "Maybe," she whispered, "but at least it would have been my choice." He didn't argue. He only looked at her, a look so raw she had to turn away. "I can't keep living like a ghost in this house," she said. "You say I'm safe, but I can't even open a window without permission." "I can't risk you," he replied, his tone breaking for the first time. "Crow doesn't stop until he wins." "Then let me fight too." He shook his head, but she saw the crack in his control, the same one she'd glimpsed when he first said her name like a secret. For the first time since their marriage, Vince stepped closer, close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating from him, the faint tremor in his hands. "You think I don't want to tell you everything?" he said quietly. "You think I sleep at night knowing you're trapped here because of me? Then let me go." "I can't." Their eyes met, defiance against guilt, fear against longing, and neither moved. The air between them felt charged, heavy with everything unsaid. When he finally spoke again, his voice was barely a whisper. "If anything happens to me, there's a key hidden in the piano bench. Take it. It'll get you out." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because Crow won't stop, and I can't protect you forever." For a moment, she thought he might touch her, his hand lifted halfway, then dropped. He turned away instead, voice rough. "Go to bed, Claire." She lingered in the doorway, heart hammering. He didn't look back as she left, but his reflection in the glass showed a man unraveling. Upstairs, the wind howled across the cliffs. She lay awake, staring at the ceiling, his words echoing in her head. "I didn't buy you, Claire. I saved you." And for the first time, she wasn't sure which truth scared her more, that he'd lied to protect her, or that somewhere in all of this, he'd started to mean it. It began with a phone call. Late evening, the house quiet except for rain tapping against the glass. Claire had been reading in the library when her phone, the one Vince had given her, buzzed with an unknown number. She almost ignored it, but the voice on the other end froze her blood. "Claire? It's me, Austin." Her brother. The one she hadn't heard from in months. "Austin? Oh my God, are you okay? How did you?" "Keep your voice down," he whispered. "They told me not to call, but I had to. There's someone who can help you. They said they know what Vince really is." Her heart stuttered. "Who told you that?" Static crackled. "A man named Crow. He said you're in danger, that Vince is lying to you. Please, Claire, just listen to them. They can get you out." Before she could respond, the line went dead. She stared at the phone, her hands shaking. Crow. The name she'd heard Vince whisper like a curse. That night, she couldn't sleep. The sound of rain felt louder, heavier. She tried to tell herself it was a trick, that Crow had found a way to manipulate her brother. But the thought of Austin's voice, desperate and frightened, tore through her resolve. At dawn, she found Vince in the kitchen, pouring coffee like nothing had changed. "I spoke to Austin," she said. He froze. Just for a heartbeat, but she saw it. "Who gave him your number?" he asked quietly. "He said Crow did. He thinks you're dangerous." Vince's expression darkened. "He's using your brother to get to you. And what if you're the one lying?" His jaw tightened. "I told you the truth, Claire." "Then prove it," she shot back. "Let me call Austin again. Let me see him." No, the single word cracked through the room like thunder. When he saw the hurt flash across her face, his tone softened. "If you reach out now, Crow will find you. He's waiting for you to slip." But the more he warned her, the less she trusted him. By nightfall, she'd made her decision. If she couldn't reach Austin openly, she'd find another way. She remembered the key Vince had mentioned, hidden in the piano bench. It took her an hour to gather the courage, but when she finally lifted the lid, she found not a key but a second phone, small and unregistered. Her breath caught. A secret he hadn't told her about, or one he'd meant her to find. The message arrived just as she powered it on. "Car outside. Your chance. Come quietly." She should have run to Vince. Should have destroyed the phone. Instead, she wrapped herself in a coat and stepped into the cold. The car waiting at the gate looked like one of Vince's, black, tinted, familiar. The driver wore the same uniform as his guards. "Signora Moretti," he said. "The boss sent us. There's been a threat." It sounded rehearsed. But fear makes fools of reason. She climbed in. The ride was short, silent. When she realized they weren't driving toward the city but down the coastal road, panic flickered. "Where are we going?" No one answered. Minutes later, the car stopped near the docks. The driver opened her door, and rough hands pulled her out. A hood came down over her face. By the time it was removed, she was tied to a chair in an abandoned warehouse, her wrists burning from the ropes. A familiar voice echoed through the space, smooth, amused, deadly. "Mrs. Moretti. Finally, we meet." Jared Crow stepped out of the shadows, tall, elegant, the kind of man who smiled like a knife being unsheathed. "You've caused me a great deal of trouble," he said. "Your husband's empire is bleeding men trying to protect you. I thought it polite to meet the reason myself." Claire's voice trembled. "Where's my brother?" Crow smiled faintly. "Alive. For now. He thought he was helping you. Poor boy didn't realize who he was really working for." Her stomach dropped. "You used him. I prefer recruited." He crouched in front of her, voice lowering. "Vince built his empire on loyalty. I'm about to teach him what happens when loyalty shifts." He stood and gestured toward a table lined with phones, radios, screens showing feeds of Vince's house. "He'll come for you, of course. Men like him always do. That's when he'll die." "You won't win," she said. Crow's grin widened. "My dear, I already have. You're the bait, and he's too proud to see it." The door slammed open before she could respond. Two of Crow's men entered, dragging someone, her brother. Austin's terrified eyes met hers for a heartbeat before they forced him down beside her. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "They said they'd kill you if I didn't help." Claire's world tilted. The betrayal wasn't his, it was theirs. All of them. Crow poured himself a drink, watching them both like a man admiring his own handiwork. "Tell your husband," he said, "that I don't negotiate. But I'm willing to let you live, if he gives me what I want." "What's that?" she managed. He smiled. "Half of everything." The sound of footsteps echoed outside, heavy, deliberate, familiar. Crow's men stiffened. Jared's grin faded. "Well, that was faster than I expected." The sound came first, low, mechanical, like thunder rolling through steel. Crow froze mid-sentence, glass still in his hand. "Showtime," he murmured. Then, explosion. The far door blew inward, smoke flooding the warehouse. Sirens shrieked, red lights strobed through the fog. "Down," someone shouted, and chaos swallowed the world. Claire ducked, dragging Austin behind a pillar as bullets tore through the air. Crow's men scattered, returning fire into the smoke. The floor trembled under heavy boots, and then, through the haze, she heard it. "Claire." Her heart jumped. "Vince." "Here," she yelled, voice breaking. Shapes moved in the fog. A man lunged toward her, checking the ropes at her wrists. Claire drove both bound arms into his nose. He dropped with a curse, his knife clattering to the floor. "Austin." He grabbed it, cutting through the rope until it snapped. Gunfire ripped across the ceiling. Then, a silhouette, tall, sure, pistol drawn. Vince Moretti stepped through the smoke like a ghost from another life. His shirt was torn, blood seeping through one shoulder. "You hurt?" he barked. "No." "Good. Move." He pressed a card into her palm, slick, metal. "Exit control. Green light, push and run." "What about you?" "I'll handle Crow." She wanted to argue, but another blast shook the building. He turned and vanished into the fight. Claire grabbed Austin's hand. They ran. The control panel glowed faintly ahead. She slammed the card into the slot, the light flicked green, hydraulics hissed, but the door didn't budge. A chain looped through both handles, locked from the outside. "Back away," a voice said behind her. Crow. Calm, immaculate, gun raised. 2 guards flanked him. Behind them, a black case sat open, C4 and a detonator blinking red. "Half your empire, Vince," Crow said as Vince emerged from the haze, weapon lowered but eyes murderous. "Or she dies." Vince's gaze flicked to Claire, wet hair, rope burns, eyes wide with fury. "Let her go," he said. Crow smiled. "You always did confuse love with weakness." Before he could press the trigger, the fire system sparked to life, sprinklers hissed cold rain. In that instant, Austin yanked a wire from the wall panel. Sparks burst, lights flickered, and the magnet lock disengaged. "Now!" Claire slammed into the bar. The chain strained, then slipped free of one handle. The door cracked open just as a gunshot split the air. Vince hit Crow hard, knocking the pistol aside. They crashed into a table, Crow's hand striking the detonator, but the light stayed steady. His guards moved to fire, only to drop under precision shots from above. Vince's men. "Go," he shouted. Claire pushed Austin through the gap, then followed, shoulder bruising against steel. Cold night air hit like a slap. Behind them, the fight roared on. Vince stumbled out seconds later, blood streaking his sleeve. Claire grabbed him, pulling him clear just as bullets sparked against the frame. They fell to the wet concrete, gasping. For a second, only rain existed, heavy, endless. Vince looked at her, water running down his face. "I never wanted you to change," he said quietly. "I just wanted you to live." Something inside her broke. Not in fear, in recognition. "Move," a voice shouted. Marco and 2 of Vince's men appeared through the rain. "We've got 30 seconds. Crow?" Vince demanded. "Wounded. Not dead." "Then we leave." They piled into the SUV waiting behind the dock. Austin huddled against Claire, Vince slammed the door and signaled the driver. The first blast hit as they sped off, small, controlled, sealing the warehouse behind collapsing steel. For the first time in hours, silence filled the car. Austin's voice trembled. "I'm sorry. They said they'd save you if I told them things." Vince turned. "They used you, kid. That's on them, not you." Austin nodded, tears lost in the rain on his cheeks. Claire looked at Vince in the glow of the dashboard, his wound bleeding again, jaw clenched against pain. She reached out without thinking and wiped the blood away. His hand caught hers gently, thumb brushing the raw marks on her wrist. "We're not safe yet," he said. "Crow will come again. Then we finish it," she whispered. He met her eyes. Together. The SUV climbed the hill toward the coast road. Behind them, the docks burned orange in the mist. Ahead, the sea opened black and endless. For a moment, the word together felt real. Then the radio cracked. Marco's voice came through, urgent. "Boss, there's something you need to hear." Crow wasn't alone tonight. Vince frowned. Who else? A pause, static, hesitation. Someone inside, Marco said. One of ours. Silence filled the car again. The headlights cut through the fog like blades. Claire looked at Vince, and saw it in his eyes. He wasn't thinking about escape anymore. He was already planning the next war. 6 months later, the city had changed, or maybe it was just the way she saw it. The ocean below their new house looked calmer now, as if even the waves had tired of violence. Claire Moretti stood by the window, sunlight touching her reflection. No guards outside, no cameras watching, only the quiet hum of an ordinary morning. On the table behind her lay folders from the foundation she and Vince had built, programs for women trapped in debt, for families who owed the wrong people too much. It was his idea, though he pretended otherwise. Something worth laundering, he'd said dryly, but she saw the truth in the way he stayed late, reading every name. The empire still existed, but it had changed shape, cleaner fronts, fewer guns, more silence. The blood had been replaced by paperwork. Almost. A knock at the door broke her thoughts. Vince entered, jacket in hand, tie loose. Board meetings at 8, he said. You ready to terrify a room full of old men? She smiled. I thought that was your job. Not anymore. He crossed to her, adjusting the bracelet on her wrist, a simple silver band, not diamonds. You've got more power now than half of them combined. She met his eyes. You trust me with that? With my life. For a moment, the noise of the world faded. The distance between them was filled with everything they hadn't said, fear, loyalty, love that neither dared name. Then his phone buzzed. One glance, and the warmth in his face vanished. What is it? She asked. He pocketed the phone, smile forced. Nothing, that can't wait. But she saw it, that flicker of tension in his jaw. The same look he'd worn before every storm. Outside, the sea shimmered under a pale sun. Peace, she thought, always looked beautiful right before it broke. Vince kissed her temple. I'll be home early. She watched him leave, his shadow stretching across the marble floor, long and sharp. When the door closed, she turned back to the window, and noticed something new. A black car parked too long at the edge of the street. Engine off. Windows dark. Claire didn't move. She just breathed, slow and steady, as the first cold wind of evening brushed against the glass. Somewhere behind her, the clock struck 8.